Yo, what's up everyone? It's Bataran. Today I'm gonna watch True Scary Train Trip Scary Story animated from the YouTube channel IMR Scary Tales. Let's do this.
Me and my best friend, both 22, recently spent 3 months backpacking in Europe. We had lots of strange encounters, but this one takes the cake. We had checked out of our hostel and decided to make our way to the international train station to wait for our night train. We had to take 1 or 2 trains to get to the big train station from where we had been staying, since it was in a relatively isolated area with just highways and a gas station nearby.
Okay, that already sounds creepy. Isolated area.
We prefer to get to the train stations or airports early to get our tickets and make sure we don't miss the train. Also, we don't like walking around with our bags for hours. We had a 5-hour wait for the train, so we were both sitting on a bench just passing time on our phones. Around an hour after we arrived at the train station, a police officer came up to us and asked us what we were doing. I politely explained that we were waiting to board the night train. He asked to see our tickets, and I said that we don't have our tickets yet, just our rail passes. He looked at our passes and told us we still need to buy tickets. I thought he meant reservations, as some trains require pass holders to pay a reservation fee. Though I had researched the train we were catching and it did not require a reservation. He told us to come with him, so we gathered our bags and followed him to the ticket office. He told the clerk that we wanted to purchase 2 tickets to Bucharest. I explained that we didn't need tickets and that our final destination was Budapest. He wouldn't listen and kept insisting that we purchase tickets.
Okay, clearly there's something wrong with this guy.
Finally, the lady in the ticket office looked at our passes and printed us something like a seat assignment. This seemed to satisfy him. The officer told us that we needed to wait in a different area since we were catching the night train. So he took us to a closed-off room with some chairs and told us to stay there. He left, and we both breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that the interaction was over. It's really scary being in a foreign country and having a police officer yell at you. We thought we might get stuck in Turkey. We started watching a movie on my laptop to pass the time. About an hour after we went to the new waiting room, the same officer came in and told us we had to move again. He said to follow him, so we did. He started asking questions like, "What are you doing in Turkey?" and "How do you know each other?" etc. Questions any border control could ask. He escorts us back to the outside bench we'd been sitting on originally. He asked to see our passports and tickets for the second time, and we show them to him. He points out which terminal our train will leave from. He stands by, asking questions for a few minutes, and then leaves. This happens 2 or 3 times. He comes and tells us that we have to move, and asks the same questions, and looks at our passports. At this point, we are terrified that we are going to be detained and not make it to the train. It's nearly time to board our train, so we decide to head over to the terminal. On our way there, he intercepts us as we're about to get on the escalator. He grabs my arm, hard. I look to my friend, horrified. He looks at my friend and tells her, "You go on," and points at the escalator. She gets on the escalator. What else could she do when an officer with a gun gives an order? He waits until she gets a bit away, all the while gripping my arm. Then he looks at me and says, "Are you on Instagram?" I'm stunned. I say yes, and give him my Instagram username. He asks me to type it into his phone, so I do. He lets go of my arm and says, "Have a good trip."
This guy's desperate, mate. Oh my days.
Connect with my friend and we run to get the train and find our seats. I'm in tears at this point. The whole day's been so scary. I thought we were being flagged as suspicious for getting to the train station early, when all the while it was just some creep trying to chat me up or something. He followed me on Insta and sent a message request along the lines of, "What's up, remember me?" I blocked him. My friend asked me why I gave him my Instagram at all, and I told her I just wanted the interaction to be over and for him to let me get on the train.
It was a wise decision, to be fair. I mean, what else could she do if he had a gun and everything? So that was the only way to get out of that situation. So good on her, and good thing she blocked her as well. If he was a hacker, imagine if he could like hack into her device and just find out all her photos and then like bribe her for doing something. But yeah, there's too many creeps, man. Too many creeps about. just gotta watch out. It was interesting though, but it's just a really simple creep story, to be fair. There's nothing much I can say about it because she did the best she could have to get out of that situation. If I were to give her any advice, then I can't really, because what else could she have done? I'm gonna react to another animated horror story on their channel. This one is called True Scary Beach Story, Scary Story Animated.
When I was in my senior year of high school, 17 years old, all that was on my mind and my friends' minds were girls. There was one girl in particular in my physics class that I was really into. Her name was Tiffany. Some guys called her Crazy Tiff because she was super hot, but also apparently really crazy according to her exes. That's irrelevant to the story though. Basically, my best friend CJ managed to get one of Tiffany's friends, Gianna, to come hang out with us at some beach that night, since it was a Friday and the weather was warm. The best part? Tiffany agreed to come along. This was it. My big chance with Crazy Tiff. CJ pulled up to my house at 10 o'clock that night. I hopped in shotgun, and then we went to pick up the girls. On our way there, we agreed that our first priority was to get me alone with Tiffany and CJ getting some alone time with Gianna. I was extremely nervous, but when Tiffany and Gianna got in the car, things were actually going pretty smoothly. CJ and I managed to make them laugh a bunch of times. By the time we got to the beach, I was confident Tiffany and I would vibe really well alone. I don't remember the tiny details of what happened after we stepped out of the car and onto the dunes, but I do remember the beach being completely void of any other people, and CJ somehow managed to go off alone with Gianna into the darkness. After a few minutes, just like we planned, Tiffany and I took a little walk down to the water and wet our feet and whatnot. Then we just laid on the sand and talked for a while. Things were going smoothly until Tiffany pointed out to the ocean. "What is that?" she said. I looked to where she was pointing but didn't see anything. I laughed at her apparent delusion and got up to go closer to the water in the hopes of maybe seeing what she saw. My feet touched the cold water, and that's when I was close enough to see it. There was a long, thin object sticking out of the water. I entered a little closer and saw it moved. I jumped out of the water and ran back to Tiffany. "It's a person," I said quietly to her. It was truly bizarre, the fact that anyone would be in the freezing cold water at this hour. Tiffany wanted to move because she was uncomfortable, and it seemed like whoever it was just watching us somehow. It just felt like that. So we took a walk further down the beach until we thought we had privacy. We sat back down on the beach with nothing but the sound of the ocean waves and our voices. But Tiffany was once again the one to point out something. "You hear that?" she asked me. I did kind of hear it. It was like a smaller kind of splashing sound, but it stopped as soon as it started. We looked out to the ocean, and I heard Tiffany gasp. The guy was out there again. I was going to go out there and tell him to back off, but Tiffany told me no, let's just go. I was hoping she would. I just wanted to look tough in front of her. We got back to the car, and CJ and Gianna weren't back yet. Suddenly my phone started blowing up with texts, all from CJ. Apparently he'd been texting me in some kind of panic the whole time we were on the beach, and I guess I didn't have any reception out by the water. He texted me first saying, "Dude, some weird guy is in the water watching us." And then, "Yo, some weird deformed looking guy is stalking us, get to the car now." 5 minutes
Yet again, another stalker.
later he sent a couple of other texts, basically panicking over being followed by something in the dark. Keywords, something, not someone, something. His second to last
That's even worse.
text said he was going to come look for us and to answer when I got this. His last text was, "We're on our way back to the car, now, get there." He also tried calling me 3 times apparently. I called him back at once and he picked up right away, out of breath, not even letting me speak. All he asked was if I was near the car and I said yes. He said, "Good, stay right there," and hung up the phone. Less than 30 seconds later, Gianna and CJ came out of the surrounding darkness next to the Jeep. He explained the best he could while trying to catch his breath that some deformed-looking creature walking on 2 legs was following them. I didn't know whether to laugh at what he said or not. I told him about how we saw someone in the water too. He asked me to describe what it looked like. I kept getting confused by his way of describing the person as if it was a creature. I told him it looked like a really tall, lanky person standing in the water. He said he got a chance to take a closer look at it, and it was some kind of deformed humanoid thing. Tiffany and I looked at each other, and now we kind of nervously laugh. What he was saying was just too bizarre, but I think parts of both of us took him seriously. Gianna even vouched for what he was saying. It was a scream that made us all jump into the car. It was some kind of half-human, half-demonic kind of screaming. I can't describe it, you just have to hear it. Needless to say, we were all frantic in the car, asking CJ questions. But nearer the end of the ride,
Is that? What can it be?
we all grew silent. I guess we were all just lost in our thoughts about what had happened. To give you an idea of how quickly all of this happened, we were on the dunes for about half an hour. After I heard that scream, I did start to believe CJ somewhat, but I still feel like what I saw in the ocean was a person. Just CJ's way of describing who or what was following him as some kind of deformed humanoid thing on the beach, that is what still freaks me out the most.
Sorry, when I was recording this, I didn't realise the focus was bad.
Who knows what it could have been? Who knows? I'm starting to doubt whether this story is true or not now. Because how can it be a creature? Unless it's an animal, how can it be a demonic creature making that kind of noise? Yeah, I mean, if they haven't seen it clearly, then they can't really say it's a demonic creature just simply by judging from the appearance and the noise it makes. What if an animal that was struggling or something makes that same noise? What if it was an animal? Or what if it was a guy who was like covered in seaweed, but he just looks like that in the reflection, and he's basically trying to ask for help. He's trying to scream for help, but his voice sounds distorted because of how much he was screaming. Okay, now I'm just making things up, but it could be that. I mean, there's got to be ways to find out what it actually is. You can't just leave it like that. I just really want to know what it is. What can it be? Because like, if it was during the daytime and you actually saw the creature clearly, then it would make much more sense, really, because you can't really tell just by a black thing in the sea in the dark that you can just about see in it. But that noise it made, that really that was quite freaky, because no animals really make that kind of noise unless there is an animal like that who makes that exact noise. But it just sounded weird to them, because like, you know, if you link two things together, like a weird looking creature and a noise together, it will probably make your mind think that noise sounds weird when it actually doesn't sound weird. It just sounds like an animal crying. But to them, they might think that because in their head they're thinking, oh, it's not an animal, it's a demonic creature, and that forces them to make the whole situation even worse, if you know what I mean. So I don't know, okay, just judging from this, but it was very interesting, definitely interesting, and I like stories like this. It really gets me thinking in case I go into that situation. I mean, I wouldn't go into a beach in the dark when there's no one there. I mean, it's still a bit risky, isn't it? You never know what lies around there. I'm not saying I'm scared of the dark or anything, but I'm just saying, who does that? Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed my reaction. Here are some more animated horror stories in case you want to check these out, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.
Life like, this is what your life like. Try to live your life right. People really know you push your buttons like type right. This is like a movie, but it's really very lifelike.